In Chapter 2, titled Phenomena and Forces, Blavatsky delivers a stinging critique of the intellectual climate of her time. She begins by addressing the servility of society, arguing that most people are not truly men in the spiritual sense until they eliminate the dominating influence of selfishness and the infection of superstition and prejudice. She suggests that society exists in a state of moral cowardice, trapped in a dark circle of ideas and fear of public opinion. To Blavatsky, the mimicry seen in servile society reveals a kinship between humans and the simia, or apes, that is even more striking than the physical marks pointed out by anthropologists. Blavatsky then turns her attention to the prejudice and bigotry of men of science. She points out a historical irony. Science once fought for freedom against a dogmatic clergy, but having conquered, it now claims the same infallibility it once condemned, while equally failing to prove its right to it. Between these two conflicting titans, science and theology, is a bewildered public fast losing belief in a deity or personal immortality. A central theme of this section is what Blavatsky terms scientific psychophobia. She observes that while it is now idle to deny that mysterious phenomena are actually witnessed, scientists often treat them with undignified and unprofessional contempt. She cites the scholar Aksakoff, who remarked that the phenomena chase the scientists and the scientists run away from the phenomena. Blavatsky highlights that even when scientists investigate, as with the Mendeleev Commission of 1876, they often prejudge the case. She critiques the puerile theories used to explain away these events, such as unconscious cerebration, and even the sublimely ridiculous idea that sounds were produced by cracking knee joints. Finally, she discusses the rare courage of scientists like William Crookes, who subjected phenomena to crucial tests. Crookes and others were forced to admit that the manifestations they witnessed were genuine and impossible to simulate, even if they could not determine the cause. Blavatsky argues that science has reached its limits of exploration because it refuses to look beyond the partition world of the knowable into the spiritual half of the cosmos. Next, Blavatsky shifts from criticizing modern scientists to highlighting the lost arts of the ancients. She asserts that the chemistry of the most ancient period reached heights that modern science has never approached. As evidence, she cites the secret of malleable glass, which could be bent like a flexible cord or dented without shattering. According to Blavatsky, such wonders were achieved through a knowledge of the alkahest, or universal solvent. This agent, maintained by theurgists and alchemists like Van Helmont, was a fluid capable of reducing all sublunary bodies into the ens primum, or the original matter from which they were composed. Blavatsky then introduces the core metaphysical principle of the chapter, the human will as the master force of forces. Drawing on the philosophy of Schopenhauer, she argues that the universe is but a manifestation of the will. In this view, every force in nature is an effect of the will, representing different degrees of its objectiveness. Blavatsky links this to Plato's teaching that everything visible was created or evolved out of the invisible and eternal will. This will, when set in motion, becomes force and proceeds to create or organize matter by acting upon the astral light. The power of this force is directed through faith and imagination. Blavatsky quotes Paracelsus, who taught that faith must confirm the imagination, for faith establishes the will. A determined will is the beginning of all magical operations. However, Blavatsky explains that this power can be neutralized. The opposing power of unbelief and skepticism, if projected with equal force, can check or completely neutralize the will power of a medium or adept. This, she argues, is why manifestations often fail or are paralyzed in the presence of strong-willed skeptics. Blavatsky concludes that while modern scientists invent various names like psychic force, ectenic force, or unconscious cerebration, they are all merely describing aspects of the Kabbalistic astral light. She challenges science to stop running away, and to recognize that matter and spirit are not distinct divisions, but are instead will and manifestation. Blavatsky concludes Chapter 2 by defining the various intelligences that produce mediumistic phenomena, warning that what many believe to be the dead are often something far more deceptive. She distinguishes between true human spirits and elementary spirits, which are the disembodied souls of the depraved who have lost their chance for immortality and cling to the material atmosphere of the earth. These brothers of the shadow act as the primary agents in physical materializations, using their power to personate the deceased and play upon human emotions. Furthermore, Blavatsky identifies elementals as nature spirits of the four kingdoms, earth, air, fire, and water, which have never been human but can be employed by other intelligences to produce phenomenal results. She points out that these creatures are often the viewless races of the air that were seen and controlled by ancient magicians. A critical part of her analysis is the relationship between these unseen forces and human crime. She argues that many criminals are victims of irresistible obsessions, pushed toward evil deeds by these lower spiritual entities that seek to satisfy their own remaining earthly lusts. Blavatsky warns that without the discerning of spirits found in ancient philosophy, modern spiritualists are at the mercy of Dhyaka and other malevolent beings who take insane delight in playing parts and deceiving mortals. She asserts that while modern science dismisses these realities as hallucination, the ancients possessed a profound knowledge of the master force of the human will to control these forces. The chapter ends with a call to move beyond the worthless residuum of modern spiritualism and the scientific psychophobia of the day to rediscover the divine science of the soul. Thank you for joining us for this complete summary of Chapter 2. Blavatsky has shown us that the will is the master force of all forces, capable of creating or organizing matter through the astral light. Subscribe as we continue our investigation into Chapter 3, Blind Leaders of the Blind.